A lot of news to unpack from over the weekend. Look, the U.S. has announced that it is freezing nearly all foreign aid other than military assistance to Israel and Egypt. Everything else right now is on hold. And meanwhile, we're seeing how Trump's retaliatory tariffs could work after a showdown between the United States and Colombia in Latin America over the acceptance of repatriation flights of deported illegal immigrants. And look, in other news, former Fox News host Pete Hegseth, he has now been confirmed as the new Secretary of Defense, and his confirmation could be a sign of how the rest are going to go. I'll be talking more about these topics and a whole lot more today. Let's jump into it. Now, look, first off, the U.S. program to send money to countries in just about every corner of the face of the planet, well, that is now coming to an end. And this is part of a broader trend to end U.S. trade deficits, to make it so that other countries are not living off of us all the time, and also make NATO allies pay their fair share, to cut United Nations programs not in our interests or even against our interests, and a whole lot of other things. And look, on Friday, the Trump administration froze nearly all foreign aid. The only exception, the only things they did not freeze, are military assistance to Israel and military assistance to Egypt. Even the assistance to Ukraine is currently on hold. The Guardian said this. It said the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has ordered a halt to virtually all foreign aid, but made an exception for funding to Israel and Egypt, according to an internal memo to staff at the U.S. State Department. It said, quote, "No new funds shall be obligated for new awards or extensions of existing awards until each proposed new award or extension has been reviewed or approved, as consistent with President Trump's agenda," said the memo. It adds a sweeping order appears to affect everything from development assistance to military aid, including potentially to Ukraine, which received billions of dollars in weapons under Trump's predecessor, Joe Biden, as it tries to repel a Russian invasion. It notes the memo explicitly made exceptions for military assistance to Israel, whose long-standing major arms package from the U.S. have expanded further since the Gaza war, and Egypt, which has received generous U.S. defense funding since it signed a peace treaty with Israel in 1979, and maybe taken some people from Gaza as well. Now look, this temporarily also ends a long list of global programs that Americans have been bankrolling with our tax dollars. This includes global health programs we've been financing, global agriculture programs in all the different countries, social programs, social services in different countries, food assistance, handouts, educational programs, and a very long list of other programs that we've been funding in countries in just about every country in the face of the planet. Now look, it seems that part of this is related to Trump's 90-day pause on foreign development assistance. Now it's possible some of that money could be, could keep flowing eventually, but the Trump administration, they're going to review it first. And that's what kind of it is. It's not necessarily that it's ending, it's on pause while they look at what the money's actually going to. And on that note, we may finally get a clearer picture on just what all that money is getting used for. People question all the time, what is that foreign aid going to? We may finally get the answer to it. And we give money to a lot of people, even the Taliban. We give money to the Taliban, the United States. Now look, in addition to this though, other big global programs are also being looked at, right? And Trump has also removed the United States from a global corporate tax treaty. Now, this was during his flurry of executive actions on day one. And this Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD, this is a program, it's for global minimum corporate tax rates. This is the executive order. It says the OECD, global tax deal supported under the prior administration, not only allows extraterritorial jurisdiction over American income. What does that mean? It means other countries can impact America's income, but also limits our nation's ability to exact tax policies that serve the interests of the American businesses and workers. Because of the global tax deal and other discriminatory foreign tax practices, American companies may face retaliatory international tax regimes if the United States does not comply with foreign tax policy objectives. This was like a one world government program for taxes. Now it notes, this memorandum recaptures our nation's sovereignty and economic competitiveness by clarifying that the global tax deal has no force or effect in the United States. They have no power here. Now here's some context about that OECD Global Tax Treaty from AA. It says this. It says the treaty, announced in October of 2021 during the Biden administration, was signed by 140 countries representing over 90% of global GDP, including major economies such as China, the UK, Germany, France, Japan, and Turkey. It aimed to impose a minimum 15% tax rate on multinational corporations with global revenues exceeding $780.5 million, such as Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Meta, starting in 2024. Now look, the OECD estimated that the agreement would generate between $17 billion and $32 billion in additional global tax revenue, with the largest benefits expected for low and middle income countries. In other words, not the United States. Now look, the determination of who wins or loses from this move, it will still have to be determined. Part of the logic behind a global minimum corporate tax, why it was done under the Biden administration, it was this idea that if all countries do it together, if every country just has a set minimum tax on corporations, it means that the United States or other countries, Europe, even China, they could pump up corporate tax. They could charge more for all these companies, and it would not lead to the companies just fleeing to other countries with lower corporate tax rates. What it means for this to end is that if the United States or other countries now reduce corporate tax rates, while big businesses may choose to move their operations there, that's the concern, right? And remember, Trump is talking now about this. Trump wants to do the opposite. Rather than, for example, raise corporate tax rates and try to set global taxes so corporations can't flee to other countries, he wants to lower taxes, including corporate taxes, with the idea that this will give some incentive for companies to come back to the United States. They might want to work here instead of like Indonesia or China or Mexico or something like that. And look, alongside his programs to end foreign subsidies, to stop sending American money to all over the world, to quit bankrolling the World Health Organization, to stop funding the Paris Climate Accord, to use tariffs and renegotiate its trade deals to end our global trade deficits, well, Trump is also now looking to make NATO pay its share for regional defense in Europe. We are no longer going to subsidize the militaries of Europe. And he's now suggesting the United States could spur this into motion by refuting our troop presence, or reducing our troop presence in Europe. Now look, this is according to a European diplomat speaking to an Italian news agency, that's ANSA. Here's what they said. It says, according to a European diplomatic source, Donald Trump is willing to reduce the number of U.S. troops in Europe by about 20%, or about 20,000 men, as part of a review of his commitment to protecting Europe. It said, quote, furthermore, for those who remain, he would like financial contributions from European countries because these soldiers are a deterrent, and the costs cannot be borne solely by American taxpayers. We're basically funding their defense by putting the troops in place that they're not doing themselves. Now, it notes that Trump would have consistently expressed his desire to the various European leaders he has met with thus far. Now look, it notes that this follows similar actions we saw from Trump during his first term in office. He actually did this before. At the time, during his previous administration, Trump pulled 12,000 troops from Germany. Now some of them were relocated to other parts of Europe, others were brought back to the United States. But the move at the time had a reason. It was to push other countries in the NATO alliance to pay their share on defense. Look, that money, when it comes to NATO financing, that goes to the military budgets of those countries. And some have argued the imbalance of how much the United States pays into NATO works as a kind of subsidy. We subsidize their military. We finance the budgets of a lot of European countries by doing that. And remember, if they don't spend on military, they can put the money into other things. We subsidize their economies. It seems Trump right now is suggesting that we will no longer be footing this bill for Europe. Now look, in addition to this, Trump also brought an end to a program that was part of a system to facilitate mass migration into the United States. And this also allegedly involved the movement of people through various programs, including work visas and asylum claims. CBS News said this. So the Trump administration is shutting down processing offices in Latin America that the Biden administration set up to give migrants legal immigration options and dissuade them from crossing the southern border illegally. You don't need to cross the border illegally. Let us make your illegal actions legal, and we will facilitate it. That's what was happening. And note this is according to an internal government document obtained by CBS News. It says the offices, the ones who are now shutting down, established in Colombia, Costa Rica, Ecuador, Guatemala, they had allowed certain migrants, or illegal immigrants, whatever you want to call them, living in or passing through those countries, meaning that they were on their way to illegally enter the United States, passing through. It allowed them to apply for programs that would let them enter the U.S. legally. And by the way, Trump is no longer recognizing that, so they're illegal once again. Now look, this program is part of what's called the Safe Mobility Initiative, and this was used to establish what are called safe mobility offices in these Latin American countries. And what these did basically was allowed people to apply for visas and other programs like H-1B and whatever else, and then get shipped either to the United States or to Western Europe, right? They're not sending them to China, they're not sending them to Mexico, they're sending them to the United States, maybe Canada, and Western Europe, and that's about it. The program was tied in with another mass migration policy called the LA Declaration. And there was another program tied in with this called the Labor Neighbors Program, now, which started in 2024. And look, these various programs, what they did was this. They functioned as tools to facilitate mass migration, as we've been saying on this show. This was not organic. This was not by accident. It was not people just packing up their bags saying, hey, maybe I'll go migrate to America. There was a facilitated, government-funded, taxpayers-subsidized global program running the whole show. Now look, some of these were focused as a way, look, at least in terms of how they're being framed, to bring more workers to the United States and Europe. Now look, there are of course other programs tied in with this as well. You might have seen I've reported on this before, things like the Global Compact for Migration. The official name for that is the Global Compact for Safe, Orderly, and Regular Migration. And it was a 2018 program adopted through the United Nations and signed in the United States. That agreement is one of the key international agreements that used money and resources being, sent through the United Nations and other NGOs to facilitate mass migration. We were funding it with our tax dollars, whether we knew it or not. And look, now it seems that at least some of these programs are coming to an end. There may be more on this. Just last week, the Trump administration also ended the CBP One app, the Customs Border Protection One app they could download on their phones, and also stopped recognizing many of the mass asylum cases. People applying through that are now just seen as illegal aliens. And it also restored the Remain in Mexico program for people on the wait list to have their cases heard. They don't come into the U.S. and just live here for indefinitely. They have to go wait in Mexico until the cases are heard. And look, meanwhile, Trump is also now saying he plans to take his challenges to birthright citizenship laws all the way to the Supreme Court. I'll be talking more about this after we come back from a quick break.
Experts agree. One of the best ways to protect against financial uncertainty is to diversify your portfolio. Learn how physical gold and silver can secure your retirement funds from today's economic challenges. With a gold IRA from American Hartford Gold, you can safeguard your wealth with no penalties or taxes when you transfer your current qualifying retirement accounts. Call now and our precious metals specialists will send you a free information kit, no cost or obligation. American Hartford Gold, a trusted industry leader with an A+ from the Better Business Bureau, has a 5-star rating from thousands of happy clients. Whether you are getting physical precious metals in a gold IRA or delivered to your doorstep, we offer only the highest quality gold and silver. For your peace of mind, we also offer a no-fee buyback commitment, a low-price guarantee, along with free shipping and free insurance. So don't wait. Call the number on your screen today and secure your financial future.
President Donald Trump is saying he wants to take his fight against birthright citizenship all the way up to the Supreme Court. Now, look, as part of his day one orders, Trump brought an end to birthright citizenship, when the children who are born from illegal immigrant parents can just become citizens. A coalition of 22 states, as we mentioned before, filed lawsuits to block this. A federal judge has now officially put Trump's order on hold. And look, we'll have to wait to see what the Supreme Court says now. But Trump's move to change the laws on birthright citizenship are also exposing how large the issue has become. The Center for Immigration Studies released a preliminary estimate on how many children were born to illegal immigrant mothers in the United States, and here's what they found. Center for Immigration Studies updated numbers, folks. It said, quote, "It will take some time to investigate changes in the characteristics of the illegal population due to Biden border surge, along with the extent to which the Census Bureau surveys truly reflect those changes. However, based on how births to illegal immigrants have compared to births to non-citizens in the past, our back-of-the-envelope estimate right now is that there were 225,000 to 250,000 births to illegal immigrants in 2023, amounting to close to 7% of births in the U.S. We will revise these numbers as we obtain more data." It notes as well, "We do not expect a very large upward revision in this 2023 estimate, however, because the CDC has recorded a fairly steady number of births in the U.S. during this decade. The CDC believes that it captures nearly all births, and illegal immigrant parents in particular have the incentive to register their children's births in order to obtain birth certificates and citizenship. Up to 250,000 births to illegal immigrants is hardly trivial. It appears to be more than the number of births to legal non-citizens, and it is greater than the total number of births in all but 2 states taken individually. Although not yet available, the 2024 numbers are likely to be even higher." Meaning, basically, the American population is just about being replaced. Now, the guys we've been discussing, a key argument on Trump's side against birthright citizenship, for illegal immigrants in particular, will very likely focus on how the law has been applied. He's not tossing it out. He's not changing the Constitution. He's changing the application of it. Look, the issue is often debated on constitutional grounds. The former Supreme Court ruling only had to do with children of U.S. permanent residents, not illegal immigrants. There's not yet been a ruling on whether this applies to illegal immigrants, although it's been interpreted that way. And the Supreme Court is very likely not only going to take this into account, they will also look at the scale. And this represents a large portion of births in the United States. And also probably the impact this has on census data and on government representation. Because remember, census data where the government goes around and takes a survey of all people living in the United States, legal and illegal. It, of course, includes the children. It includes all the illegal aliens. It counts them in the U.S. system. And that population number, likewise, determines how many seats each state gets in the U.S. House of Representatives. Meaning that if a state makes itself a sanctuary state and they bring in 1 million, 2 million, 3 million new people, they get more representation in the House. It also determines the amount of federal resources a state gets. And so states that believe this will help them at the polls, they are incentivized to bring in people like this and then protect them from deportation. And look, as more people enter this system, the other side is that government officials will begin representing those people as well. Meaning, combined with all of this, the issue of mass illegal immigration and of course, birthright citizenship has the effect of altering not just the makeup of the country, but also altering the American political system. And look, the issue doesn't just seem strictly partisan either. It's not just a right-wing, left-wing type thing. Polls have been showing that actually a lot of Democrats even support mass deportations. And even Bill Maher, who's the host of HBO's Real Time, he said in a recent segment that birthright citizenship has been bastardized and that at this point, you can't say that this is just all for the good, right? And he added, quote, "I don't even think birthright citizenship is a good idea to begin with." And that's Bill Maher, right? He can say he's maybe center-left, right? And look, meanwhile, the mass deportations of illegal immigrants, it's gaining momentum. And now the deportations are beginning in Los Angeles, one of the hotbeds of this, right? And Los Angeles is otherwise a sanctuary city. The New York Post said this. It said the Trump administration's mass deportation offensive expanded into Los Angeles Saturday with pre-dawn roundups, part of a West Coast operation expected to run 7 days a week, Monday through Friday and then through the weekend, sources told the Post. Immigration agents avoided sections of the city suffering from the most damage from the devastating wildfires burning through parts of Southern California, the sources noted. The effort was part of the major crackdown in large cities across America that President Trump promised on the campaign trail and is focused on booting criminal migrants, sources added. That's the first stage of it, of course. Now, look, we can expect a lot more of this. Border czar Tom Homan has said there will be mass deportations like this going on every single day, 7 days a week for the next 4 years. He noted this during a recent interview on ABC's This Week. And as was also expected, ICE, right, Immigration Enforcement, they're now tapping other federal agencies to help them with the mass deportations as well. Watch.
So is this what we will see every single day, ending in what the president has promised is millions and millions being deported?
Yes, but you're going to see the numbers steadily increase, the number of arrests nationwide as we open up the aperture. Right now it's concentrating public safety threats, national security threats. That's a smaller population. So we're going to do this on priority base, as President Trump's promised, but as that aperture opens, there'll be more arrests nationwide.
Also, look, there are now at least 10,000 active duty U.S. troops on the U.S. southern border in addition to other resources, and they're helping with border security. They're also now working to actually finish building Trump's border wall. They're actually constructing the wall again actively. There's videos of it. They're doing it. And they're also running some of the deportations flights, flying these people back to their own countries. And it's also possible the number of U.S. troops is going to grow as well. Remember, we're only like a week and a half in, right? Not even that much. And Trump has also now moved to deputize new law enforcement officers to help with the deportations. This was announced by the Department of Homeland Security on January 23rd. Have a look at this. This is DHS, folks. Quote, "Today, Acting Department of Homeland Security Secretary Benjamin Huffman issued a directive essential to fulfilling President Trump's promise to carry out mass deportations. The directive gives Justice Department, law enforcement office officials in the U.S., Marshals, Drug Enforcement Administration, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, and the Federal Bureau of Prisons authority to investigate and apprehend illegal aliens." Basically applying to federal law enforcement, not sheriffs, not city police. This is like federal law enforcement. They're being deputized to get engaged in helping with mass deportations. And Trump has even suggested he may take the 88,000 new IRS agents who were hired by the Biden administration and then armed and taught how to use guns, and take those 88,000 people who would otherwise be digging through your tax returns and so on, and reassign them to work on border security. He made these comments during a Saturday rally in Las Vegas. Watch this.
On day one, I immediately halted the hiring of any new IRS agents. You know, they hired or tried to hire 88,000 new workers to go after you, and we're in the process of developing a plan to either terminate all of them or Maybe we'll move them to the border. I think we're going to move them to the border. Well, they're allowed to carry guns. You know, they're so strong on guns. But these people are allowed to carry guns, so we'll probably move them to the border.
Now look, it's actually not clear if Trump is joking or not. He might be serious, I don't know. But it does seem there are plans underway to reform the IRS. At the very least, there's even talk about possibly disbanding the IRS because, hey, we have the ERS now, the External Revenue Service. And look, on a related point with this as well, back to deportations, some countries have been refusing the deportations from the United States. Mexico was just recently reportedly refusing some of the deportations. Honduras has suggested it will close American military bases if the United States deports illegal alien Hondurans. Other countries have echoed similar statements. And among these countries was Colombia, which yesterday, well, we saw back and forth between Trump and the Colombian president, Gustavo Petro. Let me walk you through how that all went down. All right, first of all, Colombia, they first were allowing it, right? They allowed some early flights, deportations, and then suddenly they refused to allow the U.S. repatriation flights to land in the country. That is, military flights from the U.S. that were carrying deported Colombian nationals. They were not allowed to land. And he said, well, you're not treating them well enough. Why are these people handcuffed? The reason, by the way, is because currently they're just deporting the criminals. These are actual criminals. But in response to this, they didn't let them land. Well, Trump announced major actions against Colombia, including retaliatory tariffs. Let me show you what Trump said on Truth Social. This is what he said. I was just informed that 2 repatriation flights from the United States with a large number of illegal criminals were not allowed to land in Colombia. This order was given by Colombia's socialist president, Gustavo Petro, who was already very unpopular amongst his people. He knows that Petro's denial of these flights has jeopardized the national security and public safety of the United States. So I have directed my administration to immediately take the following urgent and decisive retaliatory measures. Emergency 25% tariffs on all goods coming into the United States. In 1 week, the 25% tariffs will be raised to 50%. A travel ban and immediate visa revocations on the Colombian government officials and all allies and supporters. And remember, and just like Miami-Dade, there's like 250,000 Colombians, right? And notes visa sanctions on all party members, family members, and supporters of the Colombian government. Enhanced customs and border protection inspections of all Colombian nationals and cargo on national security grounds. IEEPA, Treasury, banking, and financial sanctions to be fully imposed. These measures are just the beginning. We will not allow the Colombian government to violate its legal obligations with regard to the acceptance and return of the criminals they forced into the United States. Now look, Trump posted that, threatened these tariffs, and within about an hour, well, the Colombian president came back with his own 50% tariff on all U.S. goods entering Colombia, saying, I am informed that you impose a 50% tariff on the fruits of our human labor to enter the United States, and I do the same. Folks, the price of cocaine almost went up. Look, anyway, there was a lot of back and forth over this yesterday with actions being taken by both sides of, U.S. and Colombia, like the suspension of issuance of visas, but I won't go into the whole back and forth. In the end, here's what happened. Colombia folded. Colombia agreed to accept all deported illegal immigrants, according to the White House press secretary. Here's the statement from the White House. It said this: the government of Colombia has agreed to all of President Trump's terms, including the unrestricted acceptance of all illegal aliens from Colombia returned from the United States, including on U.S. military aircraft, without limitation or delay. Based on this agreement, the fully drafted IEEPA tariffs and sanctions will be held in reserve and not signed unless Colombia fails to honor this agreement. Meaning, we're not getting rid of those things Trump threatened. We're just keeping it on the side, and Trump can just sign that if he so chooses. Now, she added as well, the visa sanctions issued by the State Department and enhanced inspections from Customs and Border Protection will remain in effect until the first plane load of Colombian deportees is successfully returned. And interestingly as well, the Colombian president is also offering a presidential airplane to now help with the deportations. And look, this whole deportations showdown shows how serious Trump is about this whole issue. It's a shot over the bow also for the many other countries that have been talking about blocking Trump's deportation efforts. And there's quite a few of them, by the way. Now, folks, in other news, former Fox News host Pete Hegseth, he has been confirmed as the new Secretary of Defense. He did it. The Senate was split on this, 50-50 vote. Vice President J.D. Vance, he was the tie-breaking vote, and he made the appointment official. And interestingly, shortly after being sworn in, Pete Hegseth issued a statement to the U.S. Armed Forces, and let me show you what the new Secretary of Defense is saying. He said, quote, "It is the privilege of a lifetime to lead the warriors of the Department of Defense under the leadership of our Commander-in-Chief, Donald J. Trump. We will put America first, and we will never back down. The President gave us a clear mission: achieve peace through strength. We will do this in 3 ways: by restoring the warrior ethos, rebuilding our military, and reestablishing deterrence." He says, "We will revive the warrior ethos and restore trust in our military. We are American warriors. We will defend our country. Our standards will be high, uncompromising, and clear. The strength of our military is our unity and our shared purpose. 2, he says, we will rebuild our military by matching threats to capabilities. This means reviving our defense industrial base, reforming our acquisition process, passing a financial audit," which they never passed, by the way, "and rapidly fielding emergency technologies. We will remain the strongest and most lethal force in the world." And 3, he said, "We will reestablish deterrence by defending our homeland on the ground and in the sky. We will work with allies and partners to deter aggression in the Indo-Pacific by communist China, as well as supporting the President's priority to end wars responsibly and reorient to key threats. We will stand by our allies, and our enemies are on notice." He says all of this will be done with a focus on lethality, meritocracy, accountability, standards, and readiness. He says, "I have committed my life to war fighters and their families. Just as my fellow soldiers had my back on the battlefield, know that I will always have your back. We serve together at a dangerous time. Our enemies will neither rest nor relent, and neither will we. We will stand shoulder to shoulder to meet the urgency of this moment." And he says, "Like each of you, I love my country and swore an oath to defend the Constitution. We will do that each and every day as one team. Together, we will accomplish the President's mission to deter war and, if necessary, defeat and destroy our enemies. Godspeed." That's your new Secretary of Defense, folks. Now look, in terms of his nomination, the Senate vote, 50-50, split right down the middle. J.D. Vance was, of course, the tiebreaker. Not necessarily party lines, by the way. There were some Republicans who voted against him. This is being taken as a sign of how the confirmation for the remaining Trump nominees could go. And this is because basically, Pete Hegseth, he received the most pressure from controversy and other things on his case than pretty much almost everyone else, other than maybe like Matt Gaetz, who got pushed out, right? And if, for example, he was considered the most contentious, that's kind of the ceiling on how close things could get. Meaning we could expect many others, even the very contentious ones, to kind of hit the 50-50 threshold. We will see, though. Now, look, in other news, though, there are ongoing sightings of the mystery drones, and Trump on Monday said that he was signing executive orders and promised to give answers on just what we know about these alleged drones. Watch this.
President Trump, at some point will you use your powers of the presidency to tell Americans who are concerned about drones? Well,
Yeah,
a few weeks
good.
ago,
Yeah.
what exactly
I will.
was happening? Can you tell us now?
In fact, I'd like to know because I just got here.
What do you think?
I just came here. I've been here for what, 15 minutes now. I think it's terrible. I would like to find out what it is and tell the people.
And can you commit to some kind of...
In fact, I'd like to do that. Could we find out what that was, Susie? Okay? Yeah, why don't we find out? Immediately. I can't imagine it's an enemy, or there would have been, people would have gotten blown up all over. Maybe they were testing things. I don't know why they wouldn't have said what it was. They had a lot of them flying over Bedminster, which is interesting.
Now look, we'll have to see what he says. We were given some pretty vague answers on the drones before. We were basically only told they're not from a hostile foreign country, and also they're apparently manned vehicles. Now look, we don't know much beyond that. Some experts have suggested that these alleged drones, if they are even drones, they show capabilities outside of what is known with most aircraft, including far beyond anything we know with drones. We don't really know much about them. And look, in other news also, the CIA is now saying the origins of COVID-19 is most likely from a Chinese laboratory. AP said this. It said the CIA now believes the virus responsible for the COVID-19 pandemic most likely originated from a laboratory, according to an assessment released Saturday that points the finger at China, even while acknowledging that the spy agency, the CIA, has low confidence in its own conclusion. The reason for that? Well, they say the finding is not the result of any intelligence, any new intelligence, and the report was completed at the behest of the Biden administration and former CIA Director William Burns. It was declassified and released Saturday, meaning they knew this all along and didn't tell us. Released Saturday on the orders of President Donald Trump's pick to lead the agency, John Ratcliffe, who was sworn in Thursday as director. Now look, basically here's what they say. The CIA is still not clear on where exactly COVID-19 came from, given that there was never really any actual investigation into the origin. Remember, the Chinese Communist Party has blocked any investigation into that. The only so-called investigation that was carried out, that was the World Health Organization when they pretended to investigate and then did not. They merely went there, and then the CCP handed them information to say, and they just regurgitated what the CCP taught them to do. They just acted like little puppets, right? They did not actually investigate. And so the only information we have, well, is what we've been able to gather from outside of China, and many people, including myself in my 2020 documentary, have pointed to the evidence of a possible lab leak and also possible natural origins. But aside from this new assessment on COVID origins, this also suggests, well, part of the shift we're now seeing with the CIA, with Trump's appointee, John Ratcliffe, now in charge. And we see now the agency maybe acting a bit differently than it did under the Biden administration. They're declassifying stuff, they're getting rid of the DEI programs, and of course they're pushing back against the CCP. Latest news on this, they're currently also looking into whether the Chinese Communist Party intentionally spread COVID-19. And that's going to be a huge assessment if that does turn out to be the case. Now look, meanwhile, folks, do you remember the news when they had all these escaped monkeys from a medical research lab in South Carolina? Well, all those monkeys are now captured. They just got the last one. New York Post said this: after 2 months of unfettered freedom, 4 escaped monkeys have been captured, the last of them, and returned to the South Carolina Animal Medical Research Center they cut and run from back in November. Now notes the 4 rhesus macaws were the last of a larger group of 43 female monkeys that hightailed on November 6, 2024, after an employee at Alpha Genesis intentionally left the door open to their enclosure. And security guards for the company managed to coax most of the primates back inside the facility, offering them peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and other edible treats. The final 4 monkeys had been living in the nearby woods. So basically, well, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches saved the day apparently. But these escaped monkeys, they were raising concerns over the possibility that it could lead to a type of virus outbreak, given they escaped from like a medical research facility. There were never any major alerts on that, never any kind of major health alert or biohazard declared. It doesn't seem there was any major concerns. But at the very least, well, the monkeys are all now accounted for, and we hopefully don't have to worry about that. Folks, that said, hit the like button, leave a comment. Let's jump into some questions. Let's see here. All right, first question here. MNA Kinney, you're saying, have you heard anything about China releasing an AI DeepSeek affecting the stock market real time now? Actually, yes, I have. I have a friend who works on coding, and he was telling me about this Chinese AI system even before the news kind of hit on this. In fact, I was working on a segment on this, which we'll probably have some articles on, and I'll talk about it. Basically, this is what it is. So the Chinese Communist Party just released a big AI system, right? A Chinese company, but remember in China there's no such thing as an independent Chinese company. So let me explain what this is and then why it matters. First of all, what it is. If you're involved in coding, like writing computer code, or you're involved in some kind of high-tech space, there are publicly available free AI systems that a lot of people use for like whatever. And then there's some really expensive ones. There are ones where if you want to use it once, it costs you like $200. And I can't remember the technical name for it, but this is a type of AI system that costs a lot of money to use. Now, some of the big companies that do the AI systems, they all kind of have these things. They're not free. China, they released AI DeepSeek for free. And DeepSeek provides basically this type of high scaled up capability. And so what would normally cost $200 every time you use it is now free. But that comes at a cost. What my friend was sending me was he was actually typing into the chats, right? Asking the AI, the Chinese AI, different sensitive topics in China. And he was asking, hey, what does China do to Muslim Uyghurs? What does China think about democracy? What are the historical human rights abuses of the Chinese Communist Party? What took place on Tiananmen Square? Right? What took place on Tiananmen Square in 1989 with the Tiananmen Square massacre? And basically, AI DeepSeek, this Chinese Communist Party, AI, just spurts out CCP propaganda. This is pure. You can argue it has certain uses, but it is so deeply controlled and so deeply censored. It's like you're talking to like a CCP official. This AI is just a CCP propaganda platform with the capabilities of an expensive AI system available basically to everybody. And I think it's actually kind of a stab in the back to the United States right now when they just banned TikTok. And yes, TikTok kind of was put on hold, the ban of it. It's banned, basically. People who use TikTok have been saying this. Basically, Trump gave him 75 days to reassess this. Interestingly, Mr. Beast is talking about buying it. Trump is talking about maybe putting 100% tariffs on China unless they sell TikTok instead of closing it, meaning he may force a sale of TikTok. But TikTok currently is unavailable. If you do use it, it's going to have a lot of errors. Right when this is happening, is the sound getting funny, folks? I'm sorry. Right when this is happening with TikTok, the CCP starts releasing this big, normally extremely expensive platform, meaning that, dang, the sound is funny. I'm sorry, folks. We'll try to troubleshoot it. They release this version, this AI system, right? Now, the problem with this AI system is that, first off, controlled by the CCP. Second off, everything is censored according to the CCP, meaning it's just a Chinese propaganda platform. And third, it's also derailing the Trump initiative for AI, right? Trump just announced the Stargate program. Some of you may have seen the announcement for this. Trump's working with, Sam Altman and Oracle and these other big companies, right? OpenAI, Oracle, so on. And he's making a major infrastructure and investment program to create an AI industry in the United States. And what happened was, right when Trump announces that, the Chinese Communist Party releases for free what normally costs a lot of money to use. And so by doing that, the CCP crashed the stocks of all these US AI companies. They crashed these AI companies, meaning that if these companies go out of business, the CCP is going to control the AI marketplace. This is actually a really serious issue, and I would assume the Trump administration is going to have to address it. But interestingly, the determination on TikTok and the actual law that was passed by Congress, signed into law by Joe Biden, could actually be used against AI DeepSeek as well. Meaning Trump has the legal ability to get rid of AI DeepSeek right now as we speak. And the Chinese Communist Party, they also train their AI using Xi Jinping thought. Basically, they just feed it all these Communist Party booklets and everything like that. And so their AI is basically it's educated like a Chinese special agent. Imagine you're talking to an AI, but the AI is effectively a Chinese Communist Party agent because of how they educate it. And so I do think that we could see it get banned, actually. And I think given the way it just crashed the stock market, it could get banned, especially because Trump wants to launch this new, they call it the Stargate program of American AI. Ashley from California, you're saying, I understand military aid, but why are we funding social services and food services when we need that here on our soil? Well, that's part of the argument, right? Yeah, so U.S. aid provides social services for like most of the quote-unquote developing world, and we provide a lot of other services like, you know, military funding and everything else, everything like that to even first world countries. Even wealthy countries, we give a lot of money to. You know, for example, even subsidies for like NATO or through the UN. All throughout Latin America, all throughout Africa, all throughout Asia, we bankroll social services, we bankroll medical programs, we bankroll food programs. And the question for a long time has been, look, these countries hate us. A lot of them. These countries don't respect us. The people in these countries, the governments of these countries are not grateful to us. These countries backstab us. They work with the Chinese Communist Party. These countries undermine us. These countries send drugs here, criminals here, everything else here. Why are we bankrolling their economies? Now, part of that is well, we're nice people, right? Should we not feed the hungry and the needy of the whole world if we have the capabilities of doing it? And some would argue that American monopolies on high tech and everything else like that have created a type of financial imbalance on the global market. And so some say, well, America has an obligation to do it. I would argue otherwise. I don't believe, let's put it this way. Why do you not feed the pigeons? Why do you not feed the bears at the national parks, right? Well, if you feed the bears at the national park, they become dependent on humans, meaning they stop learning to feed themselves and take care of themselves. And two, they become hostile to you. And not to compare these people to bears, but it's very similar. We feed them, we take care of them. What is the result of that? Well, they don't feed and take care of themselves. And two, not all of them at least, and two, they become hostile towards us. It is not helpful to them. It is not good for them. It is not good for us. Now, I believe that we should have, I very much believe in traditional, you know, if you want to be a nice person, you want to help out somebody in need. But I believe that when you do it on more of a human level, it does not create a type of entitlement. When you do things through massive bureaucratic systems, you tend to create a culture of entitlement. Not only are they not grateful, but they feel that we owe it to them. And you have a lot of these people, you know, I talk to people who are dealing with these illegal immigrants coming into the country now. They're not like they used to be, where they'd come here, oh, sir, please help me. Do you have work? You know, I need to feed my family. They come here and say, hey, I need food. I need a house. Like, you know, you owe it to me. This food is not good enough for me. This apartment is not nice enough for me. Like, you know, that's the difference in character you have between generosity and free handouts, and the type of entitlement that you have that comes about with free handouts. They complain that the free handouts are not enough, rather than putting an effort in on their side to improve their own lives so they don't need it. And frankly, you know, we'll see what happens, right? Miss Foster 2015, they have a chronic case of the gimmies, right? The gimmies are over. Yeah, maybe, right? Anyways, case in point, I don't think it's good for us, and I don't think it's good for them. I'm all for, in my opinion, if you want to help somebody, the best way to do it is by helping them learn to be independent, not dependent. And independence means you teach them how to do it themselves, rather than making them dependent on you where you have to keep doing it for them. I don't think that helps anybody. Let's see, at least in my opinion, right? Zan Ivy, you're saying, how about the ESG stuff, environmental social governance? That going to end as well? Yes, they're already getting rid of a lot of that. We talked on Friday. We talked about a lot of the DEI programs, diversity, equity, and inclusion. DEI is out of there. They're getting rid of all the different programs in the U.S. for DEI. The U.S. government, we talked last week, they basically laid off every single known ESG employee in the entire federal government. And they're also folding, meaning getting rid of, all the different DEI offices and agencies. And they also put out an alert for employees in different branches of the government to report to the government if an agency or an individual tries to disguise a DEI initiative using a different label. Now, on the point of ESG, it's the same thing. ESG, or environmental and social governance. This is like a lot of the, it's kind of tied in with DEI, especially on the social governance side, but this is more related to the environmental programs and other things like that. A lot of this has more of a direct financial component to it, and I know ESG does as well. I know, for example, with DEI, they canceled like $500 million of programs or more than that. And also with ESG, they're getting rid of a lot of the climate agreements, and they're getting rid of a lot of the other programs like that. Yeah, actually, for my producer, one of the recent cases, a federal judge just ruled against American Airlines in an ESG lawsuit. A judge ruled the airline violated its fiduciary duty to loyalty through its retirement plan management. And remember, so again, let me step back. There are two sides with these programs. One of them is government contracts and business contracts, right? On one side, you have government contracts and business contracts. Those are all being canceled. So they're getting rid of these initiatives through that. But the other side is like private sector stuff, and especially with investment firms. Because what a lot of investment firms have been doing is strong-arming different agencies and different businesses, and forcing businesses to basically adopt these social policies, or they don't get foreign investment or direct investment. And what they've done, essentially just like with this American Airlines case, is different states have been suing these investment firms, saying that by enforcing these policies, they are violating their fiduciary duty, that they're doing things that are counterproductive to investment, and they're harming the interests of investors, sometimes not even properly disclosing what they're doing, meaning it's becoming financially dangerous and legally dangerous for everybody who's doing it. And so both of these things they're going out the door right now. They're currently in the stage of purging it from the U.S. government. That's the big stage right now. But even in the private sector, if a school has DEI, they can get sued for racial profiling or racial discrimination. If a business has ESG, they can get sued or even charged by some of the attorneys general across the U.S. For going against fiduciary duty, which is all happening as we speak. Let's see here, another question. Realitysreal.com, you said the best ism is capitalism, right? And some people would say that the American system, it's the worst except for all the others, right? People may criticize capitalism for creating inequality and so on. But if you want to look at what communism and socialism creates, look at the inequality in China. Look at the inequality in Cuba. Look at the inequality in North Korea, in Vietnam. Look at the inequality we saw under the Soviet Union. And for those who argue, well, that was not real communism, well, maybe it's because communism fails to produce what it says it wants to produce in every single known case, meaning it does not work. Right? Maybe that's why they've never achieved the utopia, because every time they apply it, it doesn't work. Let that sink in, right? It does not work, ever, right? Ever. Now, and the few that have had, economic successes because they use mixed model economies. They adopt some forms of capitalism, but the part that works is the capitalism side, not the communism side. The part that works is capitalism. And then the communist side, all it represents is a division between like a caste system of Communist Party members and everybody else, and of massive human rights abuses. That is all that it represents in those societies. And so I agree, the best ism is capitalism, which basically just means you are free to live your life and pursue economic wealth if you choose or not. And if you work hard, you have more opportunities. If you don't work hard, you have less opportunities. It is on you to determine your own destiny, whether you succeed or fail. And yes, under capitalism, you have the freedom to fail, but you also have the freedom to learn what does not work and learn that failing ideas, well, you can reorient yourself and do something that does work. There's no subsidy for failure. And I'm a big fan of traditional capitalism, not crony capitalism, right? TZ Burton, you said, I want the same immigration policy that Mexico has. Oh, they don't allow illegal immigration. Yeah, isn't that ironic, right? Folks, try to go to Mexico and overstay your visa. Get a visa. Now, don't maybe take your safety in mind, but try going to Mexico. Get a visa, a tourist, and then try and see what happens if you overstay your visa. Do you know what happens? Well, they will deport you. They will probably fine you. And if you try to go back, you can face a serious criminal charge, as with most countries in Latin America. Try and do that in Costa Rica. Go there, overstay your visa, and then see what happens to you. If you avoid prison, you will be lucky. Right? Normally what happens is they will deport you, they will fine you, and if you try to go back, they will throw you in prison. A lot of countries are like that. And then the people from those countries come here, they overstay their visas, they expect free handouts, and then they cry in front of the cameras when they're faced with the same type of immigration laws of their own home countries. And they say America is the bad guy for having laws and basic standards. Even aside from everything else, America has some of the loosest, most open, most I think just helpful to the world immigration policies of probably any other country on the face of the planet. And we get criticized the most, and even outside of that, people violate it the most, and we've been really pretty dang forgiving on that. I think it's actually ridiculous, the expectation that has come out on the American system, that somehow, I don't know if people don't understand the immigration policies of most other countries on the face of the planet and think that we have to be different. Yeah, I don't think it works like that. And I think we're starting to see that We're not getting people who want to come here and work hard anymore. We are getting people who come here thinking they're entitled to free handouts from, hardworking Americans. And I think hardworking Americans are having a hard enough time as it is, putting food on our own plates. Let's see here. Judy Akeem, you're saying, at my workplace, they're already rebranding to inclusion and belonging. Yeah, I remember, Judy, you mentioned that, in the chat. Judy, I think you mentioned that you work in like one of these like DEI things, right? You said they're rebranding to inclusion and belonging. Actually, I saw some of the different groups that work on this. They're using that language now as well. Inclusion, belonging, yeah. There you go. Judy, you also said, help is really disempowering and should only be given when the person can still have a sense of ownership and ability to get on with their lives. It should be a one-time thing. If not, it only serves the ego of the giver who will be played a fool. Yeah, and I don't think it's nice. Imagine this. You have a parent. You might see this sometimes with a mother. And the mother babies their child. They baby the child. The kid scrapes their knee. They cry, oh, my poor baby. My poor baby. Oh, no, your scraped knee. Right? And the kid freaks out and cries, right? They do things to make the kid incapable of facing the difficulties or the realities of the world. They tell their kid, don't get a job, stay in your room, don't do this, I'll take care of you, I'll feed you, I'll do everything for you. The kid lives in the house every day, doesn't leave the house, doesn't work, doesn't go to school. Is that mother being kind to the child and responsible to the child? Or are they hurting that child? Right? I think that if you want to be responsible to a person, you will help them become independent. You don't want to control them. And I think that is true kindness. If you want to be responsible to a person, you need to teach them how to take care of themselves. And you need to give them the faculties to be able to take care of themselves, which means, being able to face the hardships of the world. You're going to get your knees scraped. You're going to get called mean names every now and then. People are not going to be nice to you. You're going to have to work with somebody and you don't like them. They're mean to you. Your boss is mean to you. Some days you have a bad day. Some days you have a good day. And you need to grit your teeth and stick with it and not quit. And that is being responsible to yourself. Not just giving up whenever you run into something difficult. Teaching a kid to live like that and face the realities of the world and live with the uncomfortable nature that you'll encounter. That is being responsible to them. And this type of victimhood mentality, this type of dependence mentality, this type of idea that every mean word is somehow, the worst thing that's ever happened to you, and you should cry wolf every time something goes wrong in your life, you're not going to be happy if you live like that. In my opinion, if you want to have a happy life, you don't do that by trying to eliminate everything in the world that would make you unhappy. You live a happy life by being able to deal with all the unhappy things of the world and to learn to not be affected by it, right? You need to develop a type of inner strength, I believe. And I think that will create a good person. To be kind is not just being kind when everybody's nice to you. To be kind is learning to be kind when other people are mean to you. To be brave is not to have nothing that would scare you. To be brave is to learn to be unmoved and unshaken in your resolve even when things do scare you, right? And I think this type of inner strength and inner character is what makes good people and what makes independent people. And I think it's this inner strength and inner good that communism and socialism try to destroy in people. It makes them jealous, it makes them hateful, it makes them infantile, and it makes them worthless as human beings. And I think those are not good for people. I think it's terrible, anybody who spreads those things. And I think it goes against the very basis of what it means to be a happy person. You're going to create miserable people if you teach them to be that way. And so I don't think these things are good for people personally, right? Which is also the opposite of religion as well. You know, religion teaches you to, you know, turn the other cheek. Religion teaches you to be good despite the evils of the world. Religion teaches a type of internal refinement, right? A type of inner strength and a type of self-responsibility. And I think that is the counterbalance to all these wrongs of the world. That said, folks, thank you so much for being here. Join me tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Happy Monday. Another good week ahead. A lot going on, usually too much to even talk about. So there's no shortage of news, folks. I will try to highlight what I believe is most important, what is, what needs to be, seen and stuff. I'll do my best to relay that in the most responsible way possible. And so join me again tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Please share this video, like this video, help us get the word out. And as always, please take care of yourselves, stay informed, and stay free. Thank you.